Could the Rams make a deal for Davis Mills? I'm Joe Rosian, and this is RamView.
It's hot out there, but let's blow them off the line of scrimmage. Hold on,
Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Rosian, and this is RamView, the April 14th, 2023 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident, need help, got questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues, get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. Okay, so we've had a full day of there's some NFL news breaking, and there's always some Ram stuff going on. So let's chip away at some of the NFL stuff, give a couple thoughts on that, and then we'll talk about, one, a trade idea I had. The other one is a review of a trade the Rams made on this day about, 7 years ago. So let's get started here. So words came down this morning that Dan Snyder has sold or agreed to sell the Taxskins. That's probably a good thing. Snyder hasn't been a good owner. But the one thing about Dan Snyder, and this is my suspicious side of everything, is Dan Snyder a bum? Yeah, I'm guessing he's probably a bum, but I'm thinking when the NFL doesn't want you, it's this, you're just not their bum. And what I mean by that is that NFL just seems to go after coaches, owners, and things they don't want, and yet they retain scumbags. It's like everyone's perfect. We know Dan Snyder's not perfect. Dan Snyder's probably not the guy you want to mentor your kid. But there's a lot of NFL people like that you wouldn't want mentoring your kid. And he's just not their kind of bum. And that's how I view it. I also go back to, you get this with the NFL. They supposedly went through thousands upon thousands of emails, right? And the only player and the only person associated with the NFL that's sexist, racist, and homophobic was John Gruden, right? And that was found out because they were investigating Snyder. Yeah, I'm sorry. When they want you out, they want you out, and they're not going to steal it from you. He has made something like a 700% increase on his investment. I think he paid $800 million for it, and he's getting $6 to $7 billion. So I'm not crying for Dan Snyder. Was he a good owner? No. And any support he had from me is when he replaced the name Redskins with Commanders. But I understood why he did that. He did that so he'd get the heat off of him. But if he thought that was going to get the heat off of him, he's crazy. So they will always be the Taxskins to me. Locally in the NFC West, Buda Baker, safety with Arizona Cardinals, wants out. Good for him. He's 27. He's got a lot of mileage. His only problem is he's got 2 years and about 28 rocks left on his contract. And I don't know if anyone wants to pay that much for a safety unless you're really, you're close to being a contender. I give him credit, though. He's a really good player. Would I like the Rams to have him? Of course I would. But are the Rams going to pay 28 rocks for 2 years to a safety? They wouldn't even give John Johnson anything close to that. And Buda Baker is actually better than John Johnson. But so he requested a trade. Good for him. And it just pushes the Cardinals down on the win trajectory. And it kind of affirms the Rams maybe getting those 2 wins guaranteed against the Cardinals this year. But Buda Baker wants out. DeAndre Hopkins is on the block. Kyler Murray's not back until just before Thanksgiving. Yeah, it is over in the desert lands. OBJ said that there were no assurances given him by Lamar Jackson or the Baltimore Ravens that Jackson would be back at quarterback with the team in purple and black. And he was good with that. And I imagine after you've had 2 ACLs, missed an entire season, you're good with that too. If someone's offering you 18 rocks, 15 guaranteed, I don't care who my quarterback is if they're offering me that kind of money, right? I mean, come on. Who in their right mind would pay OBJ that kind of money? Oh, yeah, the Baltimore Ravens. So after the Ravens give him that kind of money, I don't think he really cares if he's catching passes from Lamar Jackson or Tyler Huntley, right? Or Kyle Bowler. Moving up the East Coast, Saquon Barkley and Dexter Lawrence want more money and refuse to report. In fact, Barkley will not sign his franchise tag. Barkley is slated with that tag to make 10 rocks this year. Lawrence, in the last year of his contract, is slated to make 10.7. Both want more money. And pundits and experts and folks are saying it's because of the contract that the Giants gave Daniel Jones. The Giants gave Daniel Jones a 4-year, $160 million contract, right? And that's viewed as the impetus and why players are getting upset. 92 of that is guaranteed. That's an average of 40 a year, okay, for Daniel Jones. Geno Smith got 2 years at 78, roughly 39 rocks. And you could have a nice debate on whether Geno Smith or Daniel Jones, who's better, who's worse. But 40 mil for a quarterback, a starting quarterback in the NFL these days, is pretty cheap, considering the type of quarterbacks you have making over 50 mil and are breaking the bank and are going to be clearing the 60 mil hurdle. And you got your quarterback locked up for 40. And honestly, what were the Giants going to do? Were they going to trade up to get one of these quarterbacks, in this draft? Were they going to somehow get their hands on Drake May and Caleb Jones next year? What were the Giants going to do? I agree, Daniel Jones isn't great, but 40 million for Daniel Jones isn't insane. It's not insane considering, about half of it's guaranteed. And Geno Smith's getting close to the same amount of money, just over 2 years. And I get it. Saquon Barkley wants his money. He needs to get his money now. And honestly, you don't give a second contract to a running back. You just don't. Dexter Lawrence, on the other hand, the guy was the second-rated DT in the NFL behind guess who? Aaron Donald. Had his best year, had 9 sacks. Dexter Lawrence is the kind of guy you dream about. 6'4", 340. That guy's almost 3.5 spins. Maybe he is 3.5 spins, and that's a light measurement for his weight. But yeah, I think Dexter Lawrence, actually, I think I'd rather have him than Saquon Barkley. I'd see if somebody wants Saquon Barkley. I really would. I like Saquon Barkley, but I'm not going to give him a second contract. No one is. Moving to the South, NFC South, Falcons signed Bud Dupree, the former Steeler and former fan favorite of Rob Sorge, the Steeler fan in Missouri. Dupree played a year with Tennessee. Free agent, signed a 1-year, 5-rock deal with the Falcons. Dupree is interesting because first round, 22nd overall in 2015 out of Kentucky. And he had a nice run with the Steelers, but he's 30 now. He's broken double-digit sacks once. And, it's kind of like the end of the line. Speaking of the Falcons, they picked up Jeff Okudah, the 3rd overall pick in the 2020 draft out of Ohio State by the Lions. And the Falcons picked him up for a 5th rounder, which I thought was pretty interesting because I don't know if it was Rams Wire, Ram fans, Bleacher Report, Turf Show Times. Somebody had it out there. Could the Rams be interested in Jeff Okudah? And it's like, no, please. No, he's the Bobby Evans of cornerbacks right now, and I don't want him. I hope his career bounces back in Atlanta, but I don't want Jeff Okudah. And but so the Detroit got out of that business, sent him to Atlanta. Careful thing to note here, though, is Okudah, as the Lions made some big strides with Cam Sutton and C.J. Gardner in their secondary, are slated either to take Devon Witherspoon or the suddenly dropping Christian Gonzalez at Oregon in terms of draft projection. Okudah was not a selection made by Dan Campbell or former Rams executive and current Detroit GM Brad Holmes. Brad Holmes has been on the money the whole time he's been at Detroit. And they're on the money moving Okudah. Speaking of 3rd overall draft selections, in 2010, I was watching the NFL draft and the Rams took Sam Bradford, and you thought, man, this is the guy, right? This is the guy. And the third player taken in that draft was a dude named Gerald McCoy. Do you remember Gerald McCoy? Yeah, he retired today, and he really hasn't played much. He hasn't played since 2021, and he only played one game then. His last full season was 2019, but he had a really nice, 8-9 seasons with the Buccaneers. Went to 6 Pro Bowls, was all pro one year, but never played in a playoff game. And his knees and his body gave out on him. But what I remember about Gerald McCoy was, when the players get that call, right? We've all seen it. They're in the green room and they get that call, and you just see the weeping begin because it's fulfillment of a dream. And you're really happy about this when this happens, right? And so this was 2010. I didn't look it up. Gerald McCoy was probably about 21, 22 years old. Now he's in his early 30s, and that dream that brought him to tears on national television draft day in 2010, that dream has been fulfilled. And now this is the great thing you have to always remind a football player, especially a football player. Now you're in your early 30s, and that dream has played out. I'm not saying it wasn't fulfilled or the dream is over. It's been fulfilled. It's played out, and it's time to move on. And he announced his retirement today, and you wish him the best. He's pretty good on camera. I'm sure he's going to land on his feet and do pretty well. But it's always ironic when you see them come into the league and then you see them leave, and so it's a little sad, a little bittersweet. But you're happy they had a nice career. Of course, no playoff games. I was looking at some mock drafts because I wanted to see what was going on with the first pick in the NFL draft. And that first pick in the NFL draft has moved and swung, pendulum-wise, has swung to Bryce Young going to the Carolina Panthers, which is interesting. I like Bryce Young. I understand completely why people like Bryce Young. I hope the best for Bryce Young, but he's an undersized Alabama quarterback. Okay? We know how undersized Alabama quarterbacks get ragdolled in the NFL. And so he's going to be different. Okay, he's going to be different. Johnny Manziel was going to be different. The small quarterback was going to be different. When you're talking small quarterback, Kyler Murray's a little too small for my taste. I think he's been given way too much credit for not doing much. If you're going to go small quarterback, about the best one I could think of is Russell Wilson. I mean, who's really carrying the torch for the small quarterback? But Russell Wilson is also pretty thick and strong. Bryce Young's not. And so I don't know why. I just couldn't pull the trigger on Bryce Young at number 1. I wouldn't trade up to number 1 for Bryce Young. I didn't like C.J. Stroud his first 2 years at Ohio State, but I did like him in this playoff game. And he's good character, dude, everyone says. He's someone that can rise above, probably, I think, has a higher ceiling, and I would go with C.J. Stroud. But then again, I'm not the NFL teams and the NFL trendsetters. And so the trends right now are Bryce Young going first. And with that, the trend is also saying is the Houston Texans aren't sold on C.J. Stroud at number 2, and that they might not select him, because I think the given was Young goes first, Stroud goes second. Stroud goes first, Young goes second. And if Stroud goes first, which I looked on Sports Gambling Podcast, had a 3-round mock, and they still, as of 5:00 this afternoon, they still had C.J. Stroud going number 1 overall to the Panthers. And it's a gambling site, so they got to be right. And Bryce Young going number 2. Will Levis going 4, to the Colts, Anthony Richardson going 5 to the Seahawks. So we'll see how that plays out. But as I was scenario building in my head, and I posted this yesterday, and I took some heat for it, I did a mock draft. I've been really hesitant to do mock draft, but I did a mock draft because I wanted to see how many picks could the Rams accumulate by trading back and still getting players that they've interviewed, or players that were at the Senior Bowl, or players that have appeared in numerous mock draft scenarios for the Rams. Instead of players I would want necessarily, but players that have appeared in different mock drafts they've interviewed and that wouldn't just be coming from left field. So I did that, and I ended up twice with Tuli Poliotto, and at about 52, 54. I think I ended up with FAU, Felix Anudike Uzama at 40. I usually pick up about 15 draft picks, which means I generally get 6 picks in the first 150 instead of just 3 picks in the first 150. Anyway, the idea was accumulate more draft picks, draft more players, because the Rams roster currently sits at about 45 to 46 people. And if you want to get that roster up towards the 90 limit, you need to draft some players. And why not draft talented ones instead of signing undrafted free agents? And the other aspect of that is McVay doesn't play starters in the preseason. And so you're going to need just camp bodies to fill it out. So as I was doing this, a thought struck me: what if I could score a deal for a backup quarterback? And there's a quarterback out there that I think could be available, and that quarterback is Davis Mills of the Houston Texans. 2 years out of Stanford. He hasn't been great, but he's been with the Texans. David Culley, Lovie Smith. It's the Texans, right? And he's been above water, touchdown to interception ratio, decent completion percentage. And I thought, if the Houston Texans draft CJ Stroud to the 2nd overall pick, or let's just say Stroud goes first and they take Bryce Young with the 2nd overall pick, they've already signed Case Keenum to a 2-year contract. Well, if you're bringing in an elite first-round draft pick, top 5, top 2 first-round draft pick quarterback, and you got Case Keenum signed for 2 years, what are you doing with Davis Mills? And so in the draft simulator, you're able to make trades. And so I offered the Houston Texans a 4th-round pick in 2024 for Davis Mills. The simulator turned it down. I offered the Houston Texans a 4th-round pick and Tyler Higbee, who's in the last year of his contract, 30 years old. We know his body is breaking down. And guess what? They accepted the trade. And when you think about that, in Davis Mills, you get an experienced backup coming to a coach that knows how to coach up a quarterback, right? McVay made Baker Mayfield interesting. And so you get Davis Mills, he's young, and you got him for another couple years. And there's this possibility that not only could Stafford go down, but Stafford could retire. And then you have Davis Mills in-house to maybe be the bridge guy until you make your next big decision at quarterback. And with that, the Rams could also, with the accumulated draft picks by trading down, they could still grab a Clayton Tune and use a couple years there to develop him. And so the Rams would have their quarterback position pretty much solidified for the next 2 seasons at least, because even if the line holds up, even if Matthew Stafford is still playing well, Matthew Stafford's body is still taking a lot of beatings, and a hit that doesn't look bad to a normal player in the prime of his career could basically end a career for someone like Stafford, who's at the back end of his career. If he gets hurt, if he gets hit a certain way, how cool would it be to have a Davis Mills step in for him? And so I suggested that, and of course, you don't know anything. Why don't you let the GMs do it? Blah, blah, blah. You're stupid, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we know all that. And then someone else made the argument that the Rams don't appreciate Tyler Higbee. And it was an argument that was made to me, but I think it was one of the Rams blog writers or commentators, Blaine Grissick, who does a really good job. And he said, Ram fans don't have an appreciation for Tyler Higbee, that he's the most productive tight end in Ram history. He is absolutely the most productive tight end in Rams history. But the Rams don't have a great history of tight end. Billy True in the 60s. You ran with Bob Klein and Pat Kern in the early 70s. Pat Kern got shipped to San Diego, and Terry Nelson became the second string guy. Rams don't throw to their tight ends. 15, 20 catches a year. Rams were a running team. Rams tight ends needed to block. And then Bob Klein, guess what? After the 76 season, he gets shipped to San Diego. And Terry Nelson becomes a starting tight end for 3 years. Doesn't play in 1980. Victor Hicks and Walt Arnold are the tight ends. Rams trade for Mike Barber. Rams trade for David Hill. Rams trade for Tony Hunter. This is the 80s story, right? Rams developed Damone Johnson. Rams signed Pete Holohan, who really good pass-catching tight end, one of my favorite pass-catching tight ends. They draft Troy Drayton. You think about all the stuff the Rams have done over the years to the point where you're stuck with Jared Cook. Tyler Higbee is definitely the best tight end in Rams history. But, that doesn't make him Jason Witten. It doesn't make him Travis Kelce. And he's 30 now, and he's been beaten up. And his contract is up at the end of this year. If he survives the June 1st cut, okay. But you can make the deal, send him and a 4th rounder in 2024 for Davis Mills, maybe move back in the draft, and in a tight end deep, tight end draft, maybe you can grab 2 guys to play alongside Bryson Hopkins and Hunter Long. I'm just saying, I don't know. I thought it made really good sense, and I got beaten up for it. The thing you don't want to have happen, folks, is that you don't want me to say something's going to happen or suggesting something's going to happen. And if it does happen, I will be unbearable to live with, okay? Because you will hear, I'll change my name to Davis Mills Terosian for the whole season if the Rams make that trade. So you probably don't want that to happen. Okay, let me get out of here real quick. That first segment went kind of long. I am Joe Terosian. I spent 21 years as a sports writer. I don't just do this for fun. I did this as a professional, mostly high school football, college football, professional football, XFL, AFL, that because there was no NFL in LA. I was one of the founding members of Mid Valley Sports. They cover the Chargers now. I do RamView. I also write books, and you can find my books on Amazon.com. Rob, out there in Missouri, I know you don't read, but hey, go buy a book on Amazon and support the kid here. I could use a little help. Just a kid from El Monte trying to make it, man. Tangent Dreams, my high school football novel, and Temple City Company of the Ages high school football novel were well reviewed and well received. If you can give those things a check out. I've also written several other novels, Christian dystopian as well. I think Walking Dead meets Christianity. And because I am in my day job, a pastor of a small church in Burbank Faith Nazarene. And you could follow me at Burbank Faith Virtual. Our channel's right here on YouTube. And we want to say thanks to our sponsors, Paul Kistler and Kistler Law Firm, as well as John and Henry Hockbean at Temple City Auto Repair. If you're interested, let us know in terms of being a sponsor. Okay, real quick, on this date in NFL history in 1987, the Raiders acquired James Lofton for the Packers for a 3rd rounder in 87 and a 4th rounder in 88. Neither of those guys turned into anything for the Packers. And James Lofton still had a lot of tread on his tires and ended up going to a couple of Super Bowls with Buffalo before hanging it up. On this date in 1994, the Vikings acquired Warren Moon from the Houston Oilers for a 4th rounder in 94 and a 5th rounder in 95. Moon didn't do much with the Vikings, and those picks didn't do much for the Houston Oilers, who soon became the Tennessee Titans. On this date in 2006, the Rams signed left tackle Todd Stussy. Stussy had a really nice career in the NFL. Played 2 seasons for the Rams, played 1 full season at left tackle, and then they re-signed him, came back, broke his foot, and he played 6 games in 2007 and called it a career. The Rams didn't get the best of Todd Stussy, but he had a really nice career. On this date in 2009, Byron Leftwich began his relationship with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is over now. He signed a 2-year deal with the team. I think people forget that Byron Leftwich, I think it was Marshall. Was he at Marshall? I'll take the correction. Byron Leftwich was the guy that supplanted Mark Brunell. Mark Brunell had been the key quarterback for Jacksonville Jaguars from expansion forward. In fact, he was the one that led him to the playoffs several times, the big win in Denver. And Tom Coughlin was the head coach. And I think people forget that Byron Leftwich was the one that replaced him. Leftwich was a good quarterback, very slow release. Got figured out pretty quick. In 2010, the Dolphins acquired Brandon Marshall from Denver for a pair of second rounders, one in 2010, 2011. And Denver did nothing with those. But here's the interesting thing there is that who was the head coach at Denver in 2010? It was Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels ran Jay Cutler out of town, ran Brandon Marshall out of town. Soon he got run out of town by 2011. And right now he's run out Derek Carr. And yeah, I don't know. Josh McDaniels, dude doesn't excite me. And the biggie on this day in 2016, 7 years ago today, the Rams sent their first round pick, their second and 2 second round picks in 2016, and a first round pick in 2017, and a third round pick in 2017. 6 picks, 2 first rounders, 3, what is that? Wait, I'm looking at this again. 2 first rounders, 5 picks. Well, wait a second, I'm reading this wrong. A first rounder, a second rounder, a second rounder. 6 picks, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, a second, and a third, whatever. They sent all that to Tennessee for Jared Goff. They had right to move up to the number 1 spot in the draft from 15 to 1. Rams moved up from 15 to 1 for Jared Goff. And hey, they got a Super Bowl out of Goff. The Titans drafted Corey Coleman, who? Austin Johnson, well, whatever. Derrick Henry, King Henry, Jonnu Smith, Corey Davis. But yet they still haven't made that great experience there, that run, right? I guess Derrick Henry had a couple of nice years there, but they couldn't get past the Chiefs. But Jared Goff took the Rams to the Super Bowl. 2 firsts, 2 seconds, 2 thirds. Okay, how I butchered that. And, I invite you, and I've said this before, I said this months ago, go back as late as the NFC title game in January of 2019. That was for the 2018 season. And watch Jared Goff throw the ball in New Orleans. That Jared Goff that you saw in the playoffs and during the 2018 season, the one that competed against Patrick Mahomes in that great game at the Coliseum against the Chiefs, that Jared Goff kind of disappeared in 2019. And by 2020, he was just all but gone. And he's not the same, wasn't the same guy. In fact, the Jared Goff I think you're seeing in Detroit looks a lot more like the Jared Goff from 2018. New surroundings, your coach loses faith in you. I don't know what it was, but Jared Goff was a good quarterback for the Rams from 17 and 18. And then somewhere, he changed. He lost his confidence. And, that really is not unheard of if you think about Jim Everett. Jim Everett's trajectory from 86 through 89 was through the roof. But that loss in Frisco in the NFC title game, the phantom sack, that was the end of Jim Everett. No one ever looked at Jim Everett the same after that. Jim Everett wasn't the same after that. Now, you can say, no one will admit it, but the Rams were getting ready to close up shop because Shaw and Frontiere were in discussions with St. Louis early on, probably in 91. They were ready to move. But yeah, even as Ram fans who never missed a game, you knew there was a different Jim Everett in 1990 than there was in 89. And by the time we got to 91, Happy Feet, all that stuff, things changed. And so today is Jared Goff Day. We got a Super Bowl out of him, and Jared Goff did a great job for the Rams while he was here. So good for him. Again, a reminder, the Rams only have about 45, 46 players under contract. Only 31 of them have received significant snaps. The Rams have no specialists on the roster. So something to keep in mind going forward as we look at this draft. When you get upset if the Rams start trading back to accumulate picks, I can see it happening. I do not see the Rams trading up because I don't know what how far do you want to move up, right? If you're just going to move up a few spots, I don't know if there's depth there that something you could get at 31 that you can't get at 36. You know what I'm saying? Maybe they want to make a big splash and go further. I don't know. we'll see. My idea would be they need to fill out this roster. They're going to trade back, accumulate some picks, and then hopefully go after Davis Mills. That would be really, really cool. We're hitting the 30-minute mark here. Rams report April 17th. OTAs begin late May, third week of May. Mandatory minicamp the 13th through the 15th. Okay. I looked at a most recent mock draft, couple of them, Sports Gambling Podcast and another, again, has FAU, Felix Anudike Uzuma out of Kansas State going to the Rams. Rams haven't interviewed him, but a lot of people are showing him coming to the Rams at 36. Steve Ramirez, my sports writer friend who loves him, the Pittsburgh fan in Missouri, Rob Sorge, who I should make a co-host after the times I've mentioned him today. That's why you should buy a book, Sorge. He keeps saying the Steelers are going to take Uzuma at 32. We'll see. At 69, I saw Garrett Williams, the corner out of Syracuse. I've seen him also at 77. And then a new name that hasn't appeared on the Rams board for a long time, and my friend Steve Ramirez is going to like this, was Zach Charbonnet out of UCLA. He appeared at number 69. And then at number 77, Matthew Bergeron, offensive tackle at Syracuse. And then the other mock draft had Garrett Williams, cornerback. Now, this mock draft that I saw, I can dance. You got an edge, and then the Rams went for a skill player, at running back. I could see taking a running back at 69 and an offensive lineman, a tackle at 77. Rams generally don't draft guards that high. Okay, I think we got the show in after I butchered the trade business. But yeah, cool. All right. I'm Joe Terosian, and this has been RamView. Thank you so much for clicking on. Please hit like, share, leave comments. Even if you don't like I don't think I was being negative towards Tyler Higbee, but if you like my idea for my trade for Davis Mills, man, let me know, because you should always be kind of like scouring, like, hey, who's somebody that not only could you trade for, but could you develop? See, there's those bridge guys like Dalton, Bridgewater, Jacoby Brissett. I think I said Andy Dalton, Case Keenum. Yeah, you could bring them in as a backup. Baker Mayfield's in that category now too. But then there's those guys that you could maybe develop. The other player I had my eye on this offseason was Mike White, and he ended up in Miami. But there's guys out there like that could maybe develop into something that we haven't seen already. And so we'll see. So if you like the Davis Mills idea, let me know, and then we'll call Stan and Les and Sean and tell them what they need to do. All right, cool. I'm Joe Terosian. Thank you so much for subscribing, so much for clicking on, for all the support. It's a lot of fun. God bless, guys. Talk to you soon. Have a great weekend. Hey, USFL starts tomorrow. All right. I'll see you soon. I'll see you Monday.